Blue Tears, Paris, 1935. Olga Khokhlova stood at the window of the salon, illuminated by a crystal chandelier, watching the atelier on the third floor of the opposite building. The lights were on. Pablo was there. Not alone, of course. He was never alone. With elegant fingers, she lifted the Italian lace curtain slightly. Her gaze was locked on that window, now a habit, perhaps a ritual of torture. The same scene every evening, Pablo's shadow, a woman's silhouette, two bodies dancing before the canvas. Today, he was with her. Dora Maar. Photographer, poet, a woman as beautiful as reason, as dangerous as madness. Olga's lips curved into a bitter smile. Dora had come after Marie-Thérèse. Marie-Thérèse would come before someone else, after little Françoise. In Pablo's life, women were like tides, waves crashing onto the shore, leaving marks in the sand, then retreating. But Olga was different. She was the first. She was his wife. My ballerina princess. Pablo's voice still echoed in her ears. 20 years ago, when she was with Diaghilev's Ballet's Russes company in Rome, he had seen her. Olga was on stage, light as a swan in tulle, with an aristocratic bearing as if she had emerged from royalty. Pablo was an ordinary Spanish painter, messy, wild, hungry, but there was such fire in his eyes that it burned Olga's heart. "I will love you forever," Pablo had said. Perhaps he wasn't lying. The definition of forever was just different for him. For Pablo, forever lasted as long as a brushstroke. When they married, Olga had brought order to his life. Bourgeois salons, cocktail parties, piano recitals. Pablo had objected at first. He said he felt suffocated, but then he accepted it. Perhaps every painting sold in those salons was the price of the world Olga had built. When little Paolo was born, everything seemed perfect. A family portrait, painter father, ballerina mother, smiling baby. Pablo transferred it to his canvas, but real life was far more complicated than canvas. The first betrayal. The first infidelity came when Paolo was only 4 years old. A young model. Olga never even learned her name. Pablo didn't apologize. An artist needs more than one source of inspiration, he had said in a cold tone, as if being a painter was an exemption certificate from all moral obligations. Olga forgave him. What could she do? She was a Russian émigré, alone in Paris. She had a child. And a part of her still loved Pablo. She loved that crazy, selfish genius. Then came Marie-Thérèse Walter. She was 17, blonde, docile. Pablo had seen her in front of a shopping center, said, "You have an interesting face. Let me paint you." The girl had accepted. How could she refuse? Pablo Picasso stood before her. Marie-Thérèse was a mistress, but Pablo didn't hide her. On the contrary, he transferred her to his canvases. Her round face, soft features transformed into eroticism under Pablo's brush. Le Rêve, the dream painting, was Marie-Thérèse displayed in her most naked, most vulnerable state. Paris was talking about it. Olga, meanwhile, sat at home, alone, with little Paolo. "I want a divorce," Pablo had said one day at the breakfast table, as if discussing the weather. Olga slowly put her cup down on the table. "There is no divorce in a Catholic marriage," she said in a calm voice. Pablo's face tensed. "Then let's live separately. Our assets are joint. If you divorce, half of your collection becomes mine." Pablo stood up from the table in anger. "You can't take my art from me." But she couldn't. Pablo left but didn't divorce. He abandoned Olga but left her as his wife. A strange arrangement. Legally married, emotionally strangers. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. The shadow of Guernica, 1937, was the darkest year of the Spanish Civil War. German planes bombed the town of Guernica. Pablo created that enormous canvas with rage, pain, passion. Guernica. Screaming women, shattered bodies, the black and white scream of chaos. Dora Maar was by his side. Dora was very different from Marie-Therese. Intellectual, strong, sharp-tongued. She was a photographer and documented every stage of Guernica. She was the first woman who stood beside Pablo, argued with him, challenged him. Olga learned about it from the newspaper, in an art criticism article. Picasso's new muse, Dora Maar, documented the creation process of Guernica. New muse. Olga tore the newspaper. Paolo ran to his room to avoid seeing his mother cry. He was 13 now, old enough to understand everything. Olga had seen Dora once, at an exhibition opening. Pablo hadn't introduced her, of course, but Olga knew. There was a challenge in Dora's green eyes, as if saying, "I won." But who really won? Pablo painted Dora just like the others. In the Weeping Woman series, Dora's face was fragmented, deformed, twisted with pain. Each painting was like a torture session. Pablo was transferring Dora's soul to canvas, tearing a piece from her with every brushstroke. "Your tears are my canvases," Pablo had told Dora one day. Dora found this romantic. She was a fool. Collapse years passed. Marie-Therese became pregnant, gave birth to a girl named Maya. Pablo was living with 2 children, 2 mistresses, 1 wife all at once. Paris whispered about him, but no one directly judged. He was a genius after all. Geniuses didn't follow rules. Olga, however, was falling apart. Her elegance was gone. Her dance was over. She lived alone in her apartment, waiting for Paolo's visits. Sometimes she followed Pablo in the streets, waiting for hours to see which woman he was with. Her friends were worried. "Pull yourself together, Olga," they said. But how could Olga pull herself together? Pablo had stolen her soul. Dora collapsed as Pablo expected. After a 10-year relationship, Pablo left her. Dora had a nervous breakdown. She underwent electroshock therapy. When she came out of the hospital, she was a different woman, broken, silent, a ghost. When Olga heard this, she felt a bitter sense of triumph. "You see," she whispered in her empty salon, "I'm still alive." But was this living? Watching that window every day, seeing Pablo's new women, becoming a ghost of herself? The final painting. In 1954, when Olga died, Pablo didn't come to her funeral. "We were already separated," he said coldly. But that night he sat in his atelier, looking at an old photograph. Young Olga, in her white tutu, with her elegant bearing. "My ballerina princess," he whispered. Then he picked up his brush and began to paint. But this time, it was different. Olga's face wasn't deformed, wasn't fragmented. It was beautiful, as it was. Pablo worked until morning. When the painting was finished, he leaned back. Olga was looking at him from the canvas, sad but dignified. "Forgive me," Pablo said in the empty atelier. The painting didn't answer. And years later, a journalist asked Pablo, "Which woman did you love the most?" Pablo lit a cigarette, and as he blew out the smoke, he answered, "All of them, and none of them." The art was complete. The women were ruins.